phrase that.
Good morning.
Morning.
It is 8 o'clock, time to get started. And we are very fortunate today to have our state representative, Marc Catlin, to be our speaker. I'll turn it off. We always have to do that. We have it set at 92, and then once it starts, it goes back in.
Looks like water jet.
There, we're good to go. Marc is a native of Montrose County. His family has farmed on Spring Creek for generations, starting with sugar beets and coarse barley. And when those markets went away, they switched to corn and seed beans. He opened his own real estate, graduated from Montrose High School, opened his own real estate company, and then was hired on by United Bank to be their ag lender. He decided to take a hiatus and go back and get his degree from what was then Mesa State, it's now Colorado Mesa University. And while he was there, he managed the fairgrounds for Mesa County. He worked on the AB Lateral, a hydroelectric project proposed by the Uncompahgre Valley water users, and got the opportunity from that experience, these are a little out of sequence, to be the assistant manager for Uncompahgre Valley water users, and was after that promoted to manager. So he was manager of water users for how many years?
I was there 17.
A long time, 17 years. So he's very well versed in water. Most recently, he has been employed by Montrose County as the Water Rights Development Coordinator. He had a radio show, and some of you may have heard that on KUBC, called Diversions. It was a weekly talk show where he talked about water business and ag. He's an advocate for Western Slope, and as I said, can talk about water, he can talk about ag, he can talk about business, he can talk about the economy. Today we ask him to come talk about his last legislative session. Give us an update, highlights, bills he sponsored, things that were important, especially to us on the Western Slope, things that were important to Colorado, and that covers a lot of ground. So it's my pleasure to introduce today Marc Catlin.
Well, thank you. I don't know if I'm old enough to have done all those things. That was a very nice introduction. What basically it says is that I'm a hometown guy. I'm from here. I care about here. And when I go to Denver to represent you, that's what's on my mind first. It was a big job asking me to do all of these things and, and to keep it entertaining. Part of this over there was not that entertaining. But, regardless of what we've heard or some of the articles in the paper, there was work done. And it did get accomplished. We did have the opportunity to do some things that will help the Western Slope of Colorado and help Colorado in general. I'd like to talk just a little bit about how the legislative session started and finished. When we got there, the urban area has a much bigger number of legislators than we in rural Colorado. the urban corridor is growing so rapidly that when we redistricted, their districts shrank. They got smaller geographically. Ours on the western slope and in rural Colorado got bigger. For example, the 58th district that I represent, when we went to Denver to begin with, there were 4 counties: Montrose, Ouray, Montrose, San Miguel, Montezuma, and Dolores. Today, we represent those counties along with all of Ouray, all of Hinsdale, and all of Gunnison, and then the North Fork of the Delta. We did lose a part of Montezuma County. It went to the 59th district, but we still represent the irrigated ag portions of Montezuma County. So what happened was we have, in order for us to have 90,000 people in our district, which is what we have to have now because of the population, we had to expand. They shrank. Therefore, there are more legislators in the Capitol building than there from the urban area and the suburban area than we have from rural Colorado combined. Regardless of party, one of the things that's turning up and starting to happen a lot more today is the Western Slope legislators, Republicans and Democrats, come together and start to pass bills that influence and that do some good for the Western Slope. Because we don't have the number of votes, so if we can caucus together, not so, just on bills we talk to each other about, and we get them to support us, then the opposition party, the Democrats, see that there's benefit in it, and we've passed a number of bills that have been good for the Western Slope. There is a lot of acrimony and arguing, but I think one of the reasons for that is that there are a lot of first-year legislators. So when you come to the building, after you've gotten elected, and you're very used to giving rally speeches and rah, 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 shaking your fist in the air, I'll change everything. It's hard to switch gears from a candidate to a legislator, because you use different words, you do different speeches, you have to be persuasive, you have to be convincing, not just selling the fact that I'm the right guy. Look at me, I'm the right guy. So it's harder for those, and you know, I'm gonna tell you how old I am. Younger people are becoming legislators. And they come in all a ball of fire. And if their first bill bumps into a stone wall, all of a sudden now they're wound up tighter than a drum and want to explain to you, hey, listen, this has got to happen. Well, when you get some of those kind of approaches, it doesn't matter what party, because our party had the same thing. It just stops everything. And then all of a sudden you have no momentum. The bills that you really care about, all of a sudden you have to work so much harder to get people to agree to at least listen to it. Because there's a lot of times in that building when you're trying to promote a bill that's something about your district, particularly the 58. Sometimes you just have to sit down with them, and it doesn't matter which party. Sit down and explain, hey look, the 58th district is this. And some of these people from the Eastern Slope look at you and say, no way. No. You know, and you think, oh man, we're going to be here a while now. If they don't believe that this is where Olathe Sweet Corn comes from, well, you got a long ways to go. So there's a lot of conversations that are not on the floor, office to office. You know, we make an appointment with one another, and maybe we go get a cup of coffee in the cafeteria or in the lobby and start talking about, hey, I'm going to try and run this bill that's going to do this for my district. Why don't you take a look at it and see that it'll be good for your district? that's been one of the techniques. It's not a technique, that's just one of the things that we do, our office, in Denver, is, say, this is good for my district. Look at it. I think you'll see it's good for yours. Once they read these bills, they'll call me on the phone and say, yes, I'd like to be a co-prime sponsor on that, which means a primary sponsor, so that now it's a Republican and a Democrat bill, and it will move. If I, just from the Western Slope, said, I'm gonna run this bill on my own, I'll fall on my sword, and I don't care if it passes or not, I don't ask for anyone to co-prime with me. Maybe it's a statement, maybe it's a positioning bill, maybe those kind of things. But if it's going to pass and come back and influence or impact you and me and our neighbors, the reality is it has to be a bipartisan bill. So one of the things that happened this year, and I guess it must have impressed somebody, I didn't even realize it, but every one of my bills passed, and every one of them was bipartisan sponsored. So they thought, well, we better put that in the paper. That's news. So they said that I'm the most bipartisan man in the building. But I think what that really says is that I have not stopped and said, you go to Hades, to anyone. I haven't done that. So evidently I'm the friendliest man in the building. Pretty low bar, but I'm there, So just, there's a lot of press and a lot of ink that everybody hates everybody just fights all the time, they almost break out into fistfights. Well, we are not the Philippines legislature. I've seen those pictures where those guys are jumping over the chairs and having a brawl. That doesn't happen. Well, for one reason, we have a great sergeant at arms, and most of them are recently retired state patrolmen, and they can hurt you bad. They're trained. But they very seldom even have to come down on the floor and say, hey, you need to chill out, Mark. Because sometimes it's easier to simply say to someone, they come to me and say, well, look at this bill and see if you'd like to be on it. Well, if it's not what we do over here, then I can look at it and say, look, I just can't go along. I can't do that. I'll be a no. Now they mark my name on the sheet of paper that they're carrying around as Catlin's a no. That's all they needed to know. Because actually they're counting noses to figure out, will this pass or will it not pass? If it won't pass, they have to go get and convince some people to come along with it, pass it. So Western Slope, we're at a disadvantage because of the number of people we have. And in the current swing of things, there are 46 Democrats and 19 Republicans. So that would say, look, you'll never pass a bill because you don't have the numbers. You can't pass a bill. But that's very far from the truth. Like I said, we passed all of ours, passed 17 bills. Now, there are people that carried 45 and 49 and 61. But I'm not that hung up on the number of bills that I run. I care about the type of bills, what they're going to do. Do they have an impact on the 58th district? Because one thing I'm finding since I've been there is that if it will work in the 58th district, when it gets to the state level, it will work statewide. But when it comes from on high, from the governor's office or the legislative council or somebody from urban Colorado, and it comes down to us, those are the bills that we struggle the most with because they were written from an urban point of view with no concept of what rural Colorado is doing right now or is attempting to do. So they want to change that. The best example of that is there was a bill that came that wanted to set aside all of our zoning, all of our local zoning, the state would then superimpose a zoning idea on every community. Well, you should have seen the communities. They turned out big time. They testified in every committee hearing. They were there lobbying for themselves. They were saying, look, you have no idea what our community wants to look like, and all of the time, effort, and money that's been put into our communities to say, okay, that's going to be industrial over there, this is going to be residential here, this is going to be retail. When the idea from on high comes in and says, oh no, it's okay, build you an apartment house right in an industrial park. No concept of what the traffic is, anything. Because people there just looked at the theory. But when it comes out here to Montrose, and Cortez, and Tyrone, Gunnison, Crested Butte, Delta, every one of those communities came to me and said, Mark, this is not going to work. We've done all of these studies. We know what we're doing. We know what our traffic counts are. We know where the schools need to be. We are aware of what we want our community to look like when it grows up. No idea was put into that from on high. That bill had a very hard time getting through the House of Representatives. It started early in the session, and by the last day of the session, it died on the floor. In other words, there weren't enough votes to bring it for a vote. There wasn't enough time to go back and see if we could find some people to vote for it, so it died on the floor. There's a lot of times that a bill will die on the floor, because it doesn't have the support. One thing that happened this year, and there were a lot of bills that were introduced. I think 604 bills passed, but 715 were introduced. That's an incredible amount of work in 120 days, because every bill, it's introduced, it's read across the desk, is what they call that. Read across the Speaker of the House's desk, or the President of the Senate, and then assigned to a committee of reference. So if it's a zoning bill, then it would go to Transportation, Local Government, and Housing in the House. Local government, local government and housing in the Senate. Every one of those bills has to have a hearing in that committee to begin with, up or down vote. If it passes, then it goes to the floor of the House or the Senate, is heard for debate, which is called second reading. And second reading can take days. We spent overnight arguing bills and debating bills that were on the floor all day until 7:30 in the morning the next day. And they didn't even pay me overtime. We're going to pass a bill, let me tell you. But the point is that some of these things are so, that's where we read about how people don't get along, is in those kind of instances. And they are hot button items: guns, abortion. We've argued the abortion case now for 2 years. But the point is that those are very hot button items, and people contact my office and say, Mark, we need you to vote yes, or we need you to vote no, and they just swamp in. Well, everybody's getting those. So, when the time comes for that debate, you debate it. Then, after the debate, a voice vote is taken. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Aye. So then the next day, it has to be at least 24 hours from then, it comes back to the floor of the House for the final or third reading vote. Third reading, I'm limited to 10 minutes per bill. We all are, 10 minutes. If there's an amendment presented in third readings, you've got 10 minutes to speak on that amendment. So people try to put amendments on bills in the second reading and in the third, which stretches time again. After the debate is over, the vote is taken, recorded. You push the red button for no, the green button for yes. If it passes the House, then it goes to the Senate to go through the same process of committee hearings, floor of debate, and a floor vote. So it takes a minimum of 3 days for a bill to go through on rapid transit. What happens to the state of Colorado is a lot of bills get left out until very close to the end of the session. Now there's a time corner. Everything's being pushed to that corner to get across and passed before the last day of the session. That's when we spend long time in debates and all of those things. Because special rules at the end says that in 3 days a bill can pass. So you get a lot of bills that are dropped and read and gone to committee and then come to the floor and go to thirds. It's probably not the best way to pass legislation, but it is one of the things that's happened forever. It doesn't matter which party's in charge. It happens every year. We saw some of that. We talked about that with that zoning bill. So there were things that we completely disagreed with. But there were bills that were passed unanimously. And I had a couple of those. So that was, that's one of the things is that they understood the bill, they wanted to support the bill, and that, that gives you an idea of what the environment is. Today could just be acrimonious and heck, and God, nobody getting along with nobody. The next day after that's gone, water's under the bridge, you now have more work to do. You start looking at more bills as we move along. It's hard to carry that grudge on to the next bill, because the next bill may be one of those that you really think is a good bill. So there's not a lot of debate. And they're just people sitting in those seats. Some of them think they're very special people. But you're still just people sitting in that seat. So it's a people business first. You have to go, you have to talk to the people so that they know what you're trying to do. I'd like to now kind of switch gears. That gives you an idea of the environment where we're working. And I'd like to talk to you about the bills that we passed. Sometimes it's easier for me to have other people talk about the bills and the work that I've done because it feels like bragging. But as a politician, you have to get over that because, there's nobody else going to brag on you. They don't like politicians. So I wanted to start out with a bill that I think may do the most good for the western slope of Colorado, and that's the Colorado River Task Force, Drought Task Force. What happened in the state of Colorado with all of this drought that we've been through and the Colorado Basin is in, there were a lot of ideas being brought forward from the executive branch, and particularly wanting the ability to buy water from you to leave in the river in case we needed it in Lake Powell to keep a call from happening on the Colorado River in the state of Colorado. There's a couple of big flaws with that. Number one, you can't hold a water right if you don't have a beneficial use. Beneficial use is putting it on crops, doing those kind of things. We even have in a kayak park, that's a beneficial use. But we don't have in our law the beneficial use being something of we're going to send this across state lines to keep something from happening. That's not in our law. So there would have to have been another piece of law to change our Colorado state water law into something that would allow that. The other thing is we don't have shepherding. Shepherding means that if I turn off my water and leave it in the stream and it comes to your head gate, if you're in priority, you can use it. What they want to do is to create a new law that allows that water to be shepherded past your head gate, down the river to some other user. And that has not been established in law. So the idea of the task force is everybody was getting all wound up and wanting to just throw bills out across the House floor and get the hearing and all those things. So Western Slope legislators got together and ran a bill that said we're going to create the Colorado River Drought Task Force. That task force is being appointed as we speak. There'll be people from agriculture, from industry, from municipal, all of the things that we have on the Western Slope that are impacted by water will be appointed to this committee. This committee will meet most likely by the end of July, and will finish up by the end of December with what they think could be done to address some of the drought. It gives the people that are impacted by the drought and by what we might do in order to address it, an opportunity to sit at the table and let their ideas be heard, or what it will do to them. It also gave the state an opportunity to take a deep breath. Rather than knee-jerk into something, let's take an idea, let's take some time and look. There are some Eastern Slope people on that, which are Trans Mountain diverters. They have water right in the state of Colorado. But they don't overweigh the people from the Western Slope, because anything that happens in the Colorado River, you and me and our neighbors are going to be the ones that pay for it. We need to be talked to about it. So that's what's going to happen. I'm proud of that bill. The Speaker of the House and I were co-prime sponsors. And then our Senator from Montrose, Perry Will, and Senator Dylan Roberts sponsored that. So the jury's still out, but we have an opportunity. That's what some of these bills are about, is to give people an opportunity. The next bill was the projects to restore natural stream systems. We have not been able to do things in the stream, and this one will allow small projects that benefit the stream. In other words, stream bank restoration, where was the original stream, those kind of questions will be able to be addressed as long as they don't hold back water more than a quarter of an acre in surface. When the bill started, there was no water court. There was no limit on how big you could hold water back, like say, a man-made beaver dam. So now there is a quarter of an acre of surface area, and that's not very much water when you start talking about the water in these streams. I did pass the Colorado Water Conservation Water Projects Appropriation Bill. It's the most money that's ever been put into Colorado water in the history of the project of Colorado. We put $90 million into projects and into funding the Colorado Water Plant. It's more money than it's ever had, because right now water is on everybody's mind. And we need to finish the projects that are in place, and we need to take a look at the projects that could happen in regards to helping the state of Colorado meet some of its needs. Because we're growing fast, and people downstream think that they should have the water that you and I in the state of Colorado has coming to us under the Colorado water, under the Colorado Compact. The other bill that's made a lot of news is the Wolf Depredation Compensation Fund. There were two bills that came out. One was this one. I'm the sponsor, the prime sponsor on this one. What this does is it sets up a fund in the general fund of Colorado that will be perpetually funded, so that if a Catlin loses a mother cow to a wolf, that the state of Colorado is going to pay for that animal at market value. When wolves were voted in, that was one of the things in that bill that the voters said, we will pay for depredation. Well, in order to do that, it didn't happen at the ballot, how it's set up, what it's going to do, who will manage it, those kind of things. This bill says that the state of Colorado will pay. The other thing it helps set up is what's a cow worth? In hamburger, it's worth a lot more than it is standing on the hook. But there are some values that people that don't understand agriculture had not thought about. The first one is if you have a mother cow that's 3 years old and she gets destroyed, that cow has value for the next 7 years because of the calves she's not going to have. We needed to address that value in this bill we do. Because it's not just go down to the sale barn and buy a mother cow and put her in your herd and everything's wonderful. That's not what this is about. These ranches have spent generations creating the genetics behind the herds that they run. For example, in Gunnison, cattle in Gunnison have bigger chests, much bigger chests than the cattle that live here or that have come from, because they're high altitude mother cows. And they have the same job taking care of those baby calves as ours do, but in this high altitude environment. That's a different kind of cow. You're not going to just be able to drive down to Montrose or Loma and buy a cow and replace it. So we tried to address those kind of things. Plus, we wanted to insulate that payment fund from future legislatures. Right now, there are only 2 of us in the Catlin that have a water right, let alone know much about agriculture. That's how the state is changing. So in order to put some guarantee into that, we passed this bill that says it will be funded, and the livestock producers make notice, make application, and it's verified as a wolf kill, and now the system starts to kick in. This is one that passed unanimously. Even the city people realized we have to do what we said we would do, which is heartening for me. They didn't say, forget it, this is Yellowstone, you don't have to worry about it, because they're worried about it. And your friends and neighbors that are cattlemen and sheep producers and all of those things are very worried about the wolves being put in. This year, not as much, but after they start having babies, yeah, there's a lot of worry. And they move so fast that we don't know how, some of the scientists can tell you how many miles a wolf can go in a day. So from a drop-off point, within 4 or 5 days, they can be 50, 60 miles away from the drop-off point. And they're incredibly, they're really the apex predator. We're concerned about the number of predators, but that's a different issue. We have too many mountain lions and too many bears. And now we put another competitor in with them. So the buffet table that's owned by our friends and neighbors is really at risk. But this is one that we can help with. We passed the Species Conservation Trust Fund for projects. One of the things about the state of Colorado is we're the only state in the union that has a recovery number for those fish that are in the Colorado drainage, the Gunnison River, the Colorado pike minnow, the humpback, the razorback, the bony-tailed chub. We have numbers that have been set up in our conservation fund that when those animals get to a certain number, then they are downlisted from endangered to threatened. We're the only state that has that. And one of the ways that we do that is through Conservation Trust Fund, which I'm proud of. I think that's the way the Endangered Species Act could work. Rather than just using it as a zoning technique or anti-growth or any of those things, let's talk about how many animals does it take for us to say we're recovering. Weeds are near and dear to my heart. We passed the bill to maintain the weed advisory board statewide. There's a weed board here in Montrose that's important. Tamarisks and Russian olives and some of those plants you and I see easily. But there are a number of noxious weeds that grow in our county and statewide. Knapweed and some of the things that you and I may not know what that plant is, but boy, there's too many of them right there. So these are the kind of things that I think we need to be passing I passed an update on the Livestock Health Act, which, with the avian flu and all of the things that have been happening in regards to epidemics, what's happened is that once a chicken house gets identified, oh, it's got the flu, those animals have to be destroyed. But it was taking the state months to pay those people that lost their animals to where they're not in business. What this does is it makes that speed up. So if you notice that it has that, then you get an appraisal, you go through the Department of Agriculture, you can get a check so that you can start buying chickens to put back in that house and that are fresh and clean. And that would be the same thing with cattle, horses, those kind of things, if we get into another epidemic of things that we haven't thought about. One of the bills that I'm proud of is that it's got a bureaucratic name, the Fiscal Rule Advance Payment Charitable Food Grants. Feels that mean? Basically what that means is the state of Colorado has its grant cycle was exactly opposite of ag cycle. So by the time they got their grants, the local products are sold out. Now they're having to buy product from Kansas and all these other places. So what this bill did is it just changed. It changed the grant writing and application process to coincide with farming. So our food bank can go out and say, I need X number of pounds of this commodity. Write a contract with the producer, and he knows the crop is paid for, and they have food security. And it keeps the money in Colorado. So that was one. It didn't look like it meant very much. Most of the people in the urban areas were going, like, big deal, so it passed. And I think it's going to make a big difference for our food pantries, and we have a number here. We do have people that are hungry. If we can figure out a way to help agriculture produce for those people, and those people have food security, looks to me that's one of the things government ought to think about. One of the things that's going to happen here is the creation of the Rural Opportunity Zone, or office, Rural Opportunity Office. What that does is that if you've got an idea for a new business, or you want to expand your business, and you need somebody to help you with that, you can go to a one-stop, the Rural Opportunity Office, and get help with the grants you're going to need, what kind of work do you need to do in order to get that business up off the ground. Rather than being scattered all over the state of Colorado looking for help, you can go to the Rural Opportunity Office and get help. This one should be good for Montrose. It should be good for the 58th District. I'm proud of that bill. We also passed America 250 and Colorado 150 Commission. The state of Colorado is going to celebrate 150 years, along with the United States celebrating 250 years. This commission will help every community get involved with that celebration, with fundraising and those kind of things to help, if you decide you want to, that you can have one of those parties like we had in 1976. Okay, there's a moment. I'm just a hologram, so don't worry about it. But this is one that, it's going to happen way after I'm gone. But I think it's something the community and the state and the nation should celebrate, because we are the greatest experiment that's been done in self-governance in the history of the world. One bill that I sit on the Capital Development Committee, which we are the people that take the budget that's dedicated to capital buildings and higher learning, those kind of things, and we look at the requests as they come in for help. So, Western State University and Colorado Mesa University had come to that committee and made application. Mesa put in an application that they wanted to take their campus down here and put it into geothermal heating and cooling of the complete campus, which will make them the first and only campus in the United States of heating and cooling the whole campus that way. With that infrastructure we created, the city of Grand Junction will be able to tap on and start heating and cooling houses and businesses in Grand Junction. So that looked like a good idea to me. It didn't make the cut from the governor's office. So then there was another application made by Western. They needed $4 million to build, to completely remodel one of the buildings that's near the fall down. They made application to the state of Colorado on 6 years running and had gotten nothing. While CU, CSU, and Metro State had received over $100 million. Well, that didn't seem like it was right. So we ran a bill to go into the transfer some severance tax money to those two projects outside of the Colorado Capital Development Committee. And guess what? It passed. So you're going to see some changes at Western. You're going to see some changes down here at Mesa. And it's one of those things I think needed to happen, and they hadn't been paying to rural Colorado at all. We just simply didn't get any of the attention because Denver listens to Denver. And if they can drive 45 minutes down and tell them, hey, we need $43 million, okay, you get it. Western couldn't do that. And it's such a small amount, it's probably not that important. Don't tell us from Western Colorado that it's probably not that important. The reason they applied for that was they didn't bump up and say, well, we'll ask for 6, maybe they'll give us 4. Because that happens too. It's like buying a car in a lot of ways. But anyway, that's going to happen. The other bill that I'm proud of is in the license plate bill that passed where you can pay $29 to get your free pass. You did that. $29 for your free pass. It's all in salesmanship, man, I'm telling you. That bill passed last year. You probably, when you renewed your license plates, you saw the bill. That's going to generate an incredible amount of money for Parks and Wildlife. So they set a number that said $36 million to come in for us to take care of all of our state parks. Okay. So we went in and looked and said, it's going to project it to make quite a bit more than that. So we asked for half of what might be left. And boy, that was for every county that hosts a state park to have some revenue come to the county so they could manage and maintain the roads that our guests are using to go to our state parks. Because our state parks are getting loved to death. Thousands of people, millions of people. Well, that offended some of the people up high of us wanting some money. Surprise. So they carved that bill back into almost nothing, but one of the things we did get from that is they're gonna put counters and studies out in front of every state park to tell us how many cars are going by, all of those kind of things, the people that are using it, so that they can come back to the legislature in 2 years and say, this is what we will need for a budget. The other thing it did is some of these counties are spending 60% of their road and bridge budget on managing the one road into the state park. 28 miles of road, and they have 18,000 miles in their county. But 60% of the money is going to that road to manage it for our guests, that are the state of Colorado's guests, but you, the local taxpayer, are paying the bill. So, this bill has the opportunity for a county government to say, we want to charge $2, max $2 on day passes, not on the license plate. You get in. But if you come up there and buy one pass for one day, they have the ability under this to charge $2 to help offset some of those costs. The best example that I can give you is Park County. Park County is, well, the county seat is Fairplay, so it'll give you some idea where you are. The county starts just outside of Buena Vista, and it stops at Bailey. That's a long drive. They have 2 state parks, Spinney Reservoir and Lebanon. These things are so close to Denver, they're just getting loved to death. They've cut roads they chewed up all of the pavement, and it's now gravel by traffic. And they're the people that are spending 60% of their budget to maintain that one road and cannot get help from the state. So those are the kind of things that it came to us, and that came through CCI, which is the Colorado Counties Incorporated. They came and asked for help. We were able to give them some help, not nearly as much as what we had hoped, but we did get some relief, and hopefully this study will prove what we were saying. I run bills that are not just about ag, not just about natural resources and those kind of things. I ran a bill this year that I'm proud of, and I think it got some legs, it got some coverage, and that's where we're going to put the suicide information on the back of the ID cards for every college student in the state of Colorado. So that if you're not feeling right, and you know something might be wrong, there's a place to call for help, or to find out. When I was in college, I would probably have never walked through that door because somebody might see me. And I think kids are still like that. What this will do is it will allow them to call in anonymously and ask, hey, I'm feeling like this, what can I do? Or, my dad is acting like this, what should I do? What this will do is give those kids an opportunity from the first time they get this information is in high school. And it's on the back of those cards right now. It will go all the way through high school with them and then into college and be on that ID all the time that they're in college. So hopefully it will make a difference in some of the people that are having such a hard time with what's going on in their world. I was proud of that one. The people that brought us to us, the lady, she's dedicated her life to suicide prevention. She lost 2 children to suicide. And that kind of touches you when somebody says that. So, the other bill that we ran and just got signed not too long ago is under adult education, and it's enhancing adult education in Colorado to make it easier to get more places, not easier, more places to get a high school diploma or a certification that you've taken all of that you needed to get in high school. Because in this modern world, education is one of the first things that employers look at. And if you don't have a high school equivalency or a diploma, there's a lot of times there's no future conversation with you because they don't think you're able to do it. What this will do is, if you're going to, for example, Delamont Road, don't have a diploma, they're going to be able to offer at that facility the classes necessary to get it while you are working on what you're trying to become. Rather than you having to go to another place, pay a different fee, and maybe mess up some of that education. This will make it more streamlined, more opportunities, more places that you can get certification that you've been in high school. I'm proud of that. I know some people very well that didn't graduate from high school. And it's been a burden all their lives. So hopefully we can lighten that burden some. That covers the ones that I've sponsored myself. I wanted to talk a little bit about wolves, then we'll open it up and we start having a conversation with each other. the bill that was vetoed by the governor was about the state of Colorado trying to get an insurance policy that if a 10J ruling, and a 10J ruling comes from U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, what it basically says, for me, I understand this part, that if they come into the state under a 10J rule, they are considered an experimental animal, which, under management of those animals, would give the rancher, if he sees the wolf killing his cattle, the opportunity and the ability to shoot and kill that wolf, called verified take. Without it, and wolves get put into the state of Colorado, they come in under just the Endangered Species Act, which if you find the wolves catching your cows up, the best you can do is go, hey, get out of here. Big difference. But the state believes they will have it, so they didn't want to pass this. I think some of the people that ran the bill to bring wolves in were afraid of this. In my opinion, this gave every one of our rural counties some protection from just the Endangered Species Act. Because, like I say, the Endangered Species Act is strict. The rules are cut and dried and you live with them. Under 10J, it allows the state to manage wolves in a different way than they would under the Endangered Species Act. And it's in the Endangered Species Act. So it's not something that's outside of it. It has the capacity to be put into the ruling that allows paws on the ground. And paws on the ground looks to me like it's going to happen by the 31st of December this year, if we're ready or not, because there's still an awful lot of work left to do about setting the rules, how it's going to be done, where it's going to be done, those kind of things. There's still a lot of work to do. So by putting it under a 10J rule, it gave the state some options that they could deal with how they wanted to do it. So the judge is still out on that, but I was really disappointed that the governor decided he wanted to take the risk, because from the state's point of view, it may be a small risk that we don't get it, but from your friends and neighbors that run livestock, it is a big risk. Because, you know, I don't know what it would be like to go out in the pasture and there's your cows being attacked and not a thing you could do about it. I don't think I'm the kind of man that would be able to not do something about it. Because one of the things that happens is that those animals, and if you talk to a rancher, you're going to find out they have a parental interest in those animals. They were there the day that it was born. It was struggling. He wrapped him up in his coat, took him into his wife's house, wiped him off, and sat with him by the fire until he got strength enough. You would remember that animal in your herd. And if that guy is getting hurt, it would be very hard to allow it to continue to be done. So, you know, there's a lot I could talk about. I didn't have enough to talk about, folks. Watch out. The Colorado River, we continue to struggle. One of the things that's happening is more people are talking about it. Mother Nature gave us a break. She delivered a lot of water down in Cortez, in that country. They got 238% normal. The little Dolores River has more friends than it's ever had. There are people from Massachusetts parked there, rafting their hearts out. I mean, and they even have some foreigners. One guy said to me, "What do you mean foreigners?" "Somewhere back east, I don't know." But God love those people down there. They've been really good with me. I like them. And the 58th district is home. You know, even with the new counties, they've been a part of my life forever. So it's a little easier for me to go and see people in Gunnison than it would be if I had to go to Arvada. You know, if Arvada was in my district, we'd probably just give it up. But I want you to know that I'm very proud to represent you. This is the most important job I've ever had in my life. And sometimes one person can make some changes. So, is it hard? Yeah, sometimes it's hard. Does it happen all the time? No. But part of the job of being over there is to be the person that says, hey, wait a minute, that won't work here. Have you thought about this or that? Sometimes that voice makes them stop long enough to listen. Thank you very much.
So we only have about 5 minutes for questions because the police academy comes in at 9. But if you do have questions, I'll circulate the mic. And these are questions, not opinions.
Not an opinion, a little education. I was speaking to a concerned grandparent a couple weeks ago. She's raising her grandson, primary grades. And she's currently searching for a private school because she's very concerned about something she's heard happening legislatively that's going to impact programs in the Montrose school system. So these are emotionally based comments. I have no facts on it. So is there anything going on legislatively that might be introducing programs to say it in the best way that are getting away from reading, writing, and arithmetic in our school systems?
Well, that's a hard question to answer because school boards and the folks around here have a lot to do with the curriculum. I don't know of anything that says that we're going to encourage people to not study math. In fact, a bill did pass to pour more attention and more dollars into getting our students up to grade in math and in reading and writing. So there is some concern about it because of COVID. Our kids all fell behind. So there's some effort being put into that. As far as some of those social issues, I'm not sure. I couldn't answer that. I'd be kidding you if I did.
Other questions?
There's one.
Mark, on the ability to get a free pass to the state parks, would it be possible to do something very similar to that, or much less money, for our trails, hiking trails especially? I know our wilderness trails are way, way behind what they should be at the present time, and many of the other trails in Colorado are in the same situation.
I think one of the things you need to do is talk to DNR, CPW. Don't you love politics? DNR, do not recess it. The Department of Natural Resources and the Colorado Parks and Wildlife, together I think we could probably start to craft something that might look something like this, but it will take some real effort because there's going to be a lot of folks that are not influenced by that will be saying, why should I pay for it? And there might be some ideas. There are people that are starting really to talk about some of these side-by-sides that pretty much pick up a car, wanting to look at maybe possibly registering them and licensing them. So that may be something. It's worth looking at. I agree.
Anything else?